In today's session, we're going to continue on the principle of synchronous management. Today's principle is principle number 10, talking about resources. What's the difference between a resource being utilized and a resource being activated? So they're not synonymous. So let's dive into what is utilization and what is activation. So first of all, let's look at utilization. So utilization is the act of making practical or effective use of something. So in most cases in an organization, we have resources. So we want to make sure we use practical and effective use of our resources. How do we measure utilization? So it's pretty simple. We take the actual time the resource is working, which we call doing actual value-added activities, and divide that by the available time of the resource. So let's give an example. A resource spends 5 hours of an 8-hour shift doing value-added work. So what's the utilization? The utilization is that 5 divided by 8 times 100%, or 62.5%. Now, if we look at overutilization or activation, so that's the act of having a resource produce as much as possible during the resource's available time. So it's turning on that resource and just say, keep busy, keep busy, keep busy, work all the time during your available time. But overutilization can only be determined by comparing the output of one resource in the system to other resources in the system. So if we look at one resource in isolation, we can't determine if overutilization or activation is happening, because looking at that one resource, we say, okay, 8 hours, we're activated 8 hours. Are we overutilized or not? We don't know until we compare that resource's utilization to the other resources in the system. Only by doing that can we determine whether overutilization is happening, or we call that activation. So what's the effects of activation? So if we have a system here where we keep everybody busy, what you're going to see is lead times become extended and highly variable. So it's very difficult to predict when an order starts in the system when it's going to complete. Cash becomes tied up in inventory. Quality becomes more of an issue. Delivery performance is reduced. Expediting and overtime increases. So all of a sudden costs start to increase. So we have all these issues and increases in cost. So what are contributors to lost productivity of the system? So now if we look at system thinking, it's driving high utilization and efficiency everywhere. So activating everybody to keep busy, that contributes to lost productivity. Lack of sufficient problem-solving skills. So people don't know how to effectively solve problems. They just put in Band-Aid solutions, and then of course that doesn't help. It puts more activities on the people in the process, and we still have the problems. Reactive decision-making, so constant daily interruptions or minor stoppages. Incapable and unstable processes, which is contributed by lack of operating procedures or poorly written procedures. Lack of effective training programs, bad multitasking, ineffective or too many meetings, or creating data and reports that aren't properly utilized. So of course, how do we expose hidden capacity? So what is hidden capacity? So hidden capacity is not easily identified with someone with an untrained eye. So it's very difficult for someone that's untrained to go look at a system or a process and understand if there's hidden capacity. In simplest terms, though, it can be defined as busy work that doesn't convert what the person's doing into useful outputs, or overutilization that produces more than what the constraint of the system requires. So in most organizations, there's tons of hidden capacity. We need to figure out how to identify that and then most effectively utilize that. Next, how do we expose that hidden capacity? First of all, stop resources from overproducing. So we want to synchronize the flow. Second, develop good problem-solving skills. Third, eliminate unnecessary process output. So if there's stuff that people are doing that aren't needed in the next step of the process or by the customer, stop doing those things. Improve insufficient process output. So if you're having quality issues, we can improve those outputs by eliminating those quality issues. Stop multitasking. So turn off all notifications, such as email, phone, or messaging. Block out various times in the organization for certain activities. Establish office hours in the organization, so that's only when you can have meetings within the organization, and then practice effective meeting techniques. So these things will improve productivity significantly. So that's our session for today. Next week's session will be on principle number 11, understanding material, what's the difference between materials being utilized not simply consume.